So welcome everyone here that is watching our fourth seminar from the COPPEAD Finance, Accounting and Sustainability Research Lab. Today we are inviting here to present their paper Armando, who is a PhD student at EBAPE Executivo Foundation, that's the Brazilian School of Public and Business Administration, and also Thiago, who is a master's student in the same school. So they will be presenting their paper entitled Effects of Combined Graph Manipulation Techniques on Analyst Perception of Firms' Performance. They'll present their paper in 45 minutes, then we're gonna have a 15 minutes discussion of their results. So thank you for accepting to present here, and we can start the presentation. Thank you very much.
Let me share my screen, right? No, first of all, also I'd like to thank Professor Rodrigo for the invitation. This is a great opportunity, so we can improve a little bit our presentation and also hear from you, hear from your comments. So let me share here this screen. Can you see it? Okay. Let me fix something here. Okay, now I can see it as well. Okay, so the effects of combined graph manipulation techniques on analysts' perceptions of a firm's performance. So this paper was written by Professor Ricardo, Professor Rodrigo, Thiago, and myself. So we took this opportunity to run this experiment, and was a very interesting experience. So let me go through. The first thing is the table of contents. I want to show. Let me take this out of here. So we are going to start with the introduction, and then we're going to go through very briefly through the literature review and hypothesis development. And then we're going to go through the methodology and explain the results, and concluding with the remarks. So the purpose of this research is to investigate the combined effect of graph manipulation techniques on analyst perception of a firm's performance in comparison with any manipulation technique isolatedly. So, the methodology, for the methodology, we conducted an experiment with a randomly assigned financial analysts whom were given the task of rating the financial performance of fictitious companies based on different graphs, some manipulated with combined techniques and some with isolated techniques or no manipulations. And the results were estimated through ordinary least square regression, OLS. So very briefly, the findings, the results suggested that a set of impression management combined and colored in blue increases the analyst's perceptions of the company's performance and is more powerful than the use of any manipulation separately, except for the information selectivity. I'm going to explain later what selectivity is. And in addition, a set of manipulations color in blue marginally increases the analyst's perceptions of the company performance compared to a set of manipulation color in red. Regarding the originality of this paper is that there are some papers that investigate the influence of graph manipulation technique isolatedly, but we have found no research with this investigation with the combined graph manipulation techniques. Regarding the practical implication, we presume that this paper contributes to practitioners by highlighting the combined effect of graph manipulation techniques so they can prevent deception and the organizations by avoiding mistakenly using graphical impression management technique on their financial reports. And the social implications, this research raises a red flag to stakeholders to the possibility of a generalized use of graph manipulation techniques on financial statements. Okay. So what is impression management? So impression management can be defined as the signals used by firms' management to manipulate others' impressions and the reputation of the corporation. And how they can do that? Because graph design has the power of influencing decision-making. And there are experimental research in accounting and finance that provided evidence about investors' perceptions changes due to graph manipulations. And what are the types of graph impression management? So we found that it can be narrowed down in 3 categories, which are: the first is the presentation enhancement, and then we have measurement distortion, and then finally we're going to explain about selectivity. So the first, which is the presentation enhancement, consists of manipulating graph by the employment of colors used of 3D instead of 2D, manipulated baselines, axes, grid lines, inappropriate graph types, and unusual presentation of trends. So this is an example, and this is actually the example we use in our experiment. So this is a regular graph, okay? This is no manipulation graph, and here we can see the presentation enhancement graph. You see that both are exactly the same except for the color blue. So this enhancement, that's why we call presentation enhancement. This enhancement in blue may influence the perception of analysts. So when they see this, they might think that this graph is more favorable for profit because this is a profit and loss graph, so it's more favorable. They feel that like this is trendy, while these other one, they might think like they might look at here and on top of the 77, I think it's $77 million and $80 million. So they look on top of here and they might feel like, okay, so we are just back to the same position of 2012, right? And because here is blue, they might not look at the numbers and they might have the impression that this is more profitable. The profitability is increasing more in here than the profit is increasing more in here than in this other graph. So regarding color, I'm going to explain very briefly the literature review regarding color. Its consideration are a daily routine in decision-making since individuals choose, for example, which color they're going to wear of clothes, right? Or color for a new car. So this dichotomy between red and blue has been largely studied. It is popular in politics since partisan teams are referred to as red or blue according to their ideology. So you see that is very common in political parties, right? So red provides a sense of avoidance in real decision-making. For instance, red light is related to risky bets and the usage of higher amount of money in gambling environment, right? In contrast, blue is recognized as more relaxing. And they found that blue increases trust more than red in the context of brand logo design. So in the linguistic field, the connotation of red ink refers to negative performance, while the term blue ink and black ink are referred to positive performance. Consequently, favorable information used to be reported in blue or black and unfavorable performance in red, right? So the second measurement is the measurement distortion, right? The second technique, sorry, the second technique is measurement distortion. It consists of a scale modification to enhance the results. The graphic surface does not match the corresponding value since column size are not proportional to the numbers. So we can see here is a no manipulation graph, and here is a measurement distortion type of manipulation. And then we can see here the difference is, the 53 is proportional to this axis, right? And here we see the 53 here is, the numbers are the same, but the 53 here is much smaller. So we see that distortion here. And in this graph, it looks like the profit is increasing a lot. And here we can see that it's increasing, but not that much, right? Although both are the same numbers, you see the way they present, it has a distortion here, right? So measurement distortion is a bias to mitigate the appearance of unfavorable information and then intensify the appearance of favorable information. Individuals that receive distorted graphs are more likely to misinterpret reported results. And there is a quantitative measurement of a distortion called relative graph discrepancy. It's RGD. It's a way we can calculate and see how much the distortion, to see the degree of distortion, right? And the third technique is called selectivity. It is the presentation of favorable information and the omission of unfavorable information. So this technique of impression management might be more powerful for firms since they are not manipulating numbers, scales, or color, which decreases the possibility of being caught by analysts and auditors. And companies with declining performance have a higher propensity to present data for a smaller period. So we can see here the only difference, everything's okay. We have no enhancement, we have no distortion, but the only difference here is that we are omitting the 2012 year. So if we are just presenting only from here on, from 2013 on, it looks like the company has been increasing the profits along the years. While the reality is that in 2012, the profit was already high, but then we had a decrease and we are just recovering. But in the last year, we just passed $3 billion over $77 million, right? So this is the selectivity. So we are selecting what information we want to show. And the important point here is, and this is more tricky because they have no manipulation. They are not changing, they are not putting colors, they are not putting any distortion, but they are just omitting the first year. So this is more tricky because, and then auditors and analysts, they might not complain, for example, right? So these three techniques of impression management embrace violations of graph design, which produces a biased graphical representation. A single graph may be manipulated under two or more of those techniques, right? We have here, this is a single graph, okay? And this we used in our as the variable of our experiment, right? But we have here this single graph. We have the combine of all manipulations in one graph. We see here the selectivity, right? We have the distortion, this distortion here. We see the 53 is very low and the 8 is very high. And also we have the enhancement in blue, okay? So it's a complete manipulation graph. This is a graph with combined manipulations. And these are graphs with isolated manipulations. These graphs has previous studies. For this type of graph, we believe this is our contribution to the literature, right? I'm going to show you one more example is not related to finance, but it's very interesting. We found this example. It's about water consumption, right? So we see the water consumption in here. If we see 2019, 2020, 2021, we see the water consumption was going low. So when I think, for example, if this is a graph from a municipality, we might think like in our city, the consumption of water, we are saving a lot of water in the consumption, right? But the reality is that 2019, 20, 21, see, the numbers are the same, but and then we see here not that much change, because here we don't have a distortion like what they have here. This one looks like to be almost half of this one, but we see this is 3,200 something, and here is 2,900 something, right? It's almost half. It's a little bit above the half, but the reality is very low. This graph is not distorted. It has no enhancement, and then it has no selectivity. Okay, so our research question, right, is: do combined graph manipulation techniques, which embrace presentation enhancement, measurement distortion, and selectivity, influence analyst perceptions of a firm's performance more intensively than any manipulation technique in isolation? So in different degrees, previous studies supported that graph manipulation techniques individually impact the company's performance perception. However, these studies do not present evidence about the effect of all three combined manipulation techniques. So in this case, this study intends to fulfill this gap. So we hypothesize our first hypothesis: analysts who receive a graph with all manipulation combined assign a higher rating than their peers who receive a graph with any manipulation isolated or no or not manipulated, right? So this is our first hypothesis. So in this hypothesis, all manipulation means presentation enhancement, measurement distortion, and selectivity, all combined, like the last graph I showed in our presentation. Let me show here again, maybe it's worth it, just to make sure. This graph, okay? This is the combination of all manipulations, okay? And so hypothesis one is stated that analysts who receive a graph with all manipulations and color in blue assign a higher rating than their peers that, first, hypothesis 1A, okay, receive a graph with no manipulation. So in hypothesis 1A, we test all manipulations combined against no manipulation, okay? And then hypothesis 1B, receive a graph with presentation enhancement in blue only, okay? Here is all manipulations against only presentation enhancement in blue, okay? And then we go to hypothesis 1C, receive a graph with measurement distortion only, okay? Here is all manipulations in blue against measurement distortion. And the hypothesis 1D, receive a graph with information selectivity only, okay? All manipulations against information selectivity. So, and previous studies also provide evidence that blue mitigates analysts' perception about bad news when the profit in the profit decreasing context, compared to a similar graph color in red that intensifies bad news. However, literature does not provide any evidence of whether the effect of blue versus red in graphs representing financial performance is consistent for good news in the profit increase context. So to fulfill this gap, we hypothesized the next hypothesis is hypothesis 2, which is analysts who receive a graph with all manipulation combined and color in blue assign a higher rating than their peers who receive a graph with all manipulations but enhanced with a different color. Okay, so in here we compare all manipulations in blue against all manipulations with other colors. And what are the other colors? So in the hypothesis 2, all manipulations also means presentation enhancement, measurement distortion, and selectivity techniques combined, but is compared with the effect of different colors used for presentation enhancement. So hypothesis 2 compares the effect of blue presentation enhancement combined with all other techniques with the effect of black presentation enhancement combined with all other techniques. Hypothesis 2A, the effect of black presentation combined with all the techniques. So here's are the same except for the color, okay? And then also we do again in hypothesis 2B, which is the effect of red presentation enhancement combined with all other techniques, okay? Here's the combination, everybody's are even except for the color, okay? This is the hypothesis 2B. Then we're going to go through the methodology. I'm going to ask my colleague Thiago to take over.
Sure. Hello, guys. So first I will discuss a little bit about our experiment methodology. Then we will talk about our research results, and finally we will have some concluding remarks and then the discussion with Professor Rodrigo. So regarding our methodology experiment, first our data were collected through a questionnaire, online questionnaire applied by the Brazilian Accountants Association, which is also denominated Conselho Federal de Contabilidade. And the questionnaire respondents are volunteers, and data were collected anonymously, and there was no time constraint for the completion of the questionnaire. And mainly the participants were asked to answer the questionnaire, which encompassed 3 types of questions. First, the experiment, which our main goal was to access to the participants to assign a rate for fixtures company's financial performance. Then the performance-based CRT, which is a measure of whether individual is impulsive or reflexive. And finally, some socio-demographic questions. And regarding our experiment, as Armando said, this is an example of a graph with all manipulations techniques, which was presented to the treatment group in our experiment. And here we have all the 3 types of impression management techniques that we are discussing. First, selectivity, since we are meeting data from 2012, and this would indicate a decrease in performance, especially from 2012 to 2013. Second, presentation enhancement. This is pretty straightforward, since our last column is colored in blue, while others columns are colored in gray. And finally, measurement distortion. And as Armando said, we can see that 53 here in the graph, it seems like 53 is less than half 80. Therefore, measurement distortion is also present in this graph. Can you pass the slide, Armando, please? And also regarding the methodology, first, our instrument for this experiment was the platform SurveyMonkey, which is very popular for experiments and special truth online questionnaires. As I said, data were collected through an electronic questionnaire applied by the Brazilian Accountants Association. Our sample is composed by 2,055 participants. And regarding the randomization test, all groups of participants must be comparable, and the only difference among them should be the assigned graph. Therefore, we performed a series of t-tests as well as the Bonferroni correction to confirm that all groups of participants are comparable. And overall, we estimated our results through the OLS regression for several factors, such as its simpler interpretation. And we estimated the OLS regression with and without covariates. And when considering the OLS without covariates, it has the same p-values as an ANOVA analysis. So yeah, this is a very important factor of our statistical analysis. Okay. So regarding a sample, this is a new table. This table is not present on our on a paper. However, it illustrates very well our sample composition. So almost 2,700 participants presented themselves as financial analysts in the SurveyMonkey questionnaire, and we dropped observations due to several factors, such as incorrect answers in socio-demographic questions, color blindness, as well as wrong answers in the CIT test. Therefore, our final sample consists of 2,055 participants.
Let me just give one more detail because of what is this wrong answer of the CRT? Because you know the CRT is a set of questions, and many people answer very wrong answers, like wrong names, like also demographic questions. We had people with 120 years old, so we had hints that people were not answering the questionnaire properly. So we took the chance, but with these wrong questions, totally wrong questions, we took the chance and we deleted these observations. So the final sample was 2,055. Let me go next.
So here we have our summary statistics of our sample. First, considering the descriptive statistics, we can say that the average participant of our experiment is a 40 years old man with almost 15 years of professional experience. And most of our sample are from low income as well as mid to high income. And panel B, it indicates some preliminary results for the assignments that each participant had. And it mainly depicts the average answers to each graph and the comparison to a no manipulation graph. Therefore, we can see from this table that participants assigned the highest rate for the company's fixtures financial performance to a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancement colored in blue. And in addition, participants also are assigned high rates for a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancement colored in black, as well as a graph with only information selectivity. Although these are only preliminary results, they indicate that the graph with a set of impression management techniques combined and presentation enhancement colored in blue positively bias analysts' perceptions. And furthermore, the p-value and the t-statistics are related to the comparison of each graph with a no manipulation graph. Okay. So here we have our main results. And this is very interesting. First, it's important to keep in mind that this experiment was performed in a good news context. Therefore, as you guys remember, the graph that Armando just showed us, the company's P&L is increasing throughout the years. Therefore, this is a good news context. And regarding hypothesis 1A in particular, here we are comparing a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in blue with a graph with no manipulations. And this hypothesis is statistically significant since our coefficient is positive and also significant. And this suggests that impression management colored in blue with presentation enhancements colored in blue positively bias analyst perception of a firm's good performance. Therefore, this supports our first hypothesis 1A. And with respect to hypothesis 1B, the coefficients are also positive and statistically significant. And in this hypothesis, we are comparing a graph with the same set of manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in blue with a graph with only presentation enhancements colored in blue. Therefore, our control graph do not have measurement distortion or information selectivity. And these results suggest that the combination of measurement distortion, information selectivity, and presentation enhancement colored in blue is more powerful than the presentation enhancement colored in blue alone. So this is a very important result for our experiment, and this also supports our main research question. Regarding hypothesis 1C, this is also a very interesting result because although the coefficients are not significant for both the model with covariates and without covariates, these results indicate that measurement distortion, which is the graph that we are comparing to a graph with all manipulations colored in blue, is as powerful as this set of measurement and this measurement distortion, information selectivity, and presentation enhancement combined. Therefore, measurement distortion is a very powerful technique of impression management. And finally, regarding hypothesis 1D, this is also statistically significant, and it also has a positive coefficient. Therefore, here we are comparing a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancement, also colored in blue, with a graph with only information selectivity. And consequently, we can state that a graph with all manipulations colored in blue is more powerful in biasing analysts' perception of a fixture's company's performance than a graph with only information selectivity. So in sum, regarding hypothesis 1, the results of hypothesis 1A, 1B, and 1D supports our main hypothesis. However, hypothesis 1C implies that measurement distortion is as powerful as the set of combined impression management techniques. And regarding hypothesis 2, both 2A and 2B are not significant. And hypothesis 2A compares this graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in blue with a graph with all manipulations. However, the presentation enhancement is colored in black. And hypothesis 2B compares the same graph with all manipulations colored in blue with a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in red. Overall, both results suggest that in the context of good news, the color decision did not impact analysts' perception. Therefore, the color it could be red, blue, or black. It would not impact the analyst's perception of the company's financial performance throughout the years. Okay. Yeah, there we had our main results. And here it's just a summary of what I just said. Hypothesis 1A is statistically significant, and it mainly suggests that the use of measurement distortion and selectivity in combination with presentation enhancement, colored in blue, positively bias analysts' perception of a company's good performance. And yeah, this is also true for hypothesis 1B and hypothesis 1D, while hypothesis 1C is the coefficients are not statistically significant. However, the results are important since measurement distortion is as powerful as the combination of measurement distortion, selectivity, and presentation enhancement colored in blue. Okay, guys. And here we have some discussion regarding hypothesis 2, some summary. Both hypothesis 2A and 2B are non-significant. And this is very, very important because mainly in the context of good news, the color decision will not impact analysts' perception of a firm performance. And this is true for both a graph colored in black and in red. Okay, guys. So yeah, as I said, the color decision won't impact analysts' perception of a firm's financial performance. Okay. And here we have the same table as presented before. So the coefficients for the graph manipulation are the same. However, here we are presenting the covariates. And we are presenting the covariates because we have found a very interesting results regarding the gender covariate. As we can see, all the coefficients are negative, even though only the coefficients for the first three hypotheses are statistically significant. And overall, this indicates that male individuals, they assign a lower rating to firms' performance than female individuals, because since this dummy variable male is assigned as 1, these negative coefficients is true for only males. Therefore, as I said, male individuals and female individuals may have different interpretations to graph and may react to these types of impression management techniques, and the combination of impression management techniques such as measurement distortion, information selectivity, and presentation enhancement in different ways. And this is also related to previous literature. And this is a very interesting result that we found on our covariates. And yeah, this is very interesting. So in conclusion, we developed our paper on the research question, which aims to access the impact of graph manipulation techniques in combination. So the presentation enhancement, measurement distortion, and information selectivity on analysts' perceptions of a firm financial performance. And our first hypothesis encompass the effect of a set of manipulations colored in blue on the perception of an analyst about the firm's performance, while the second hypothesis considered the impact of a change in the color of the presentation enhancement technique while using all the manipulations. And we the statistical tests that we performed in our research were based on OLS regressions with and without covariates. Mainly, our results, they suggest that the combination of all manipulations is blue is the strongest and the most powerful technique to influence analyst perception, which is supported by hypothesis 1A, 1B, and 1D. However, as I said, regarding the hypothesis 1C, measurement distortion is as powerful as all manipulations combined and presentation enhancement colored in blue. So this is a very interesting result from our first hypothesis. And regarding the second hypothesis, the results of the comparison of a graph manipulation with all manipulation techniques in blue and with all manipulations in black, they indicate no significant influence of colors on analyst perception. And when we consider the hypothesis to be, and we are comparing a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in blue with a graph with all manipulations and presentation enhancements colored in red, in the good news context, the difference is higher. However, it's still not significant. So overall, in the context of good news, the color decision did not impact analyst perception of a firm's financial performance. So guys, in conclusion, our results, they shed some light on the discussion and the literature of graph manipulations techniques, which is a very broad, literature on the accounting field. And this has several implications for several types of professionals. We can state that our research results hold implications for auditors, regulators, and accountants, as well as several stakeholders such as investors, employees, and the management team. We can also say that our research results has implications to politicians, the media in general, as well as a broad range of both private and public companies. And our main result and our main outcome from this research is that the use of all manipulations combined and colored in blue enhance the analyst's perception of the company's financial performance. And finally, as I said, male and female individuals might have distinct graph interpretations and might react differently to when exposed to impression management and graph manipulations. So yeah, guys, I don't know if Armando has any another comment to address.
Thank you, Thiago. So this is it, and I'm gonna we took 43 minutes. I think 2 minutes earlier we finished. So I'm gonna take the chance and ask Professor Rodrigo if he's gonna make some comments. Thank you.
So thank you both for presenting your paper. Yeah, I'm gonna do some comments here about the paper and how can it be improved in my vision. And please stop sharing so that I can share. Stop sharing the screen. Yeah, now I can share mine. So again, thank you very much. This is a very interesting paper that, of course, I'm a part of. So this is continuing a research that me and Professor Ricardo have from some years now on behavioral accounting and how different impression management techniques influence. So I have a paper about on isolation. We also have papers on the mean errors in estimations and also how this kind of conservative estimations of assets and liabilities, how these influence the financial analysts and also accountants making their decisions. So we have some paper, like 4 or 5 papers on that. And now we continue with this paper, and Armando and Thiago are the ones that are carrying this forward with the analysis. Now I'm going to do some of my, of course, I'm going to say that's an interesting paper, but because I'm a part of it, but it is a very interesting paper because I think that this is the first paper to systematically analyze the differences between kind of the biggest impression management techniques and how they together they can be as powerful or not. So as to find which one carries the weight, and it seems to be selectivity here that's carrying the weight. It's a very nice experiment setup because you kind of have this kind of different groups and then you analyze them. You have clear practical implications because this is used a lot, especially nowadays with kind of social media, etc. You put graphs in a lot of places, different places, not only in the management discussion analysis, but also on the social media calls, so on and so forth. And it's a novel topic to analyze that. So my main talking points here are the following. So for the first one is about the second, H2A and H2B. So how they relate to a current research question, because the research question is, okay, let's see if the combination of impression management techniques are more powerful than any of them in isolation. Okay, but then H2 is not about that. It's about comparing like different ways for you to improve that in that case it was not, it was presentation enhancement. So improve the presentation enhancement. So black, red, and blue. For me, it looks much more like a robustness check to say, okay, I have there blue, but is blue what's driving? Then I'm going to do a robustness check with red and with black, and you see no difference. So all of them. So the important thing is that if you put a color there, people will see the color and that will catch their eye. Okay, not so black, red, and blue. All of them have the same effect, not significantly different. For me, it looks much more like a hypothesis check. So you can keep the paper simple by, instead of hypothesizing on that, okay, you state, okay, we are also going to do robustness check with red and black, because now instead of having something that you hypothesized and it's not significant, then you lost some space on kind of building up this hypothesis, you now use that in your favor. Why? Because, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to separate I'm going to use blue because blue is what the literature uses, okay? But you also use black and red to see if there is any kind of difference in colors, okay? So now, and that will be used the robustness check. And then that part of H2 that you did, those columns, that is a different table with robustness check. And it's okay, there is no difference. So it's kind of so my result is robust to choosing different colors. So no matter what color you use, that catches the eye and that drives the effect. Okay, so we can do that. We can do like a robustness check and sell that. So you keep it simple and you say, okay, my results are stronger, not weaker, because now it's playing against you. So I hypothesized that, but did not come forth. And those hypotheses are not even related to your bigger research question. So keep it simple. Make H1, H2B, C, and D your main hypothesis. Okay, so that's the second point. That is H1, H2, H3, and 4. Now we have 4 hypotheses. Test them, and then you do the robustness check. And now your paper seems more robust. Okay, and it flows much nicer because now all the research questions, all the hypotheses directly link to your research question. Okay. And now another point, since CRT was removed, then should the 478 be brought back to the sample? So those that of you that are watching, you do not know, but in previous version of this paper, there was kind of a CRT analysis to see if there is kind of interaction there. There was nothing, and then it was removed from the paper. But it's like the appendix. It's kind of a vestigial organ. That the paper evolved, and that still was the paper that part of the CRT by kind of restricting the sample, because we have this information, we at least can use it to kind of restrict the sample to people that are not paying attention. So now, instead of saying, okay, it's a CRT and open that can of worms, just say, we did some robustness, we did some attention check questions, okay? And people that failed those attention checks were removed from the sample. Now, do not need to kind of argue for CRT. You completely take that out of the paper, okay? And you just, because you are using here, it's not a lie, you're not misleading people, because you're using here it as an attention check. You do not care if people are impulsive or reflective. What do you want to see is if people answer that question with anything that was related to the question. It's like you're writing about John, Mary, and then people respond like, I don't know, Peter. Okay, so it makes no sense to use that answer. So here you are using that as an attention check. So that's an attention check. Could be any other attention check that you're using, but you're using CRT as an attention check. No problem on that. So now you just say that you use that in an attention check because that's the essence, not the form of the question, that's the CRT, but the essence that you use there is an attention check. Okay, I see that especially on table, I think 2, that you compare the means, and also I think on table 1 the demographic, you use both comma and point as decimal separators. So be consistent. In this case, I say use the American style, that's point, okay? Because you're gonna submit that to an international journal, so use points. So see everywhere that's gonna use a comma to separate, okay? Use that, use a point. And now in the table, you have the R-squared, adjust R-squares. Use the R-squares, not the adjust R-squares. Why? Adjust R-squares are good when you have kind of tons of covariates that are correlated to one another. But because it's an experiment and the correlation between them is 0 because it's an experiment, okay? So we are not supposed to have some kind of impact there. So that's why the R-squares are negative. Okay, because the covariates not add anything to the explanation because they're not supposed to, because that is an experiment. So use the R-squared to eliminate the problem that you have a lot of negative things there. Just use R-squared instead of adjusted R-squared here. Okay, and that's a comment that's valid for all experiments where you use OLS. If you put the covariates, you're not supposed to be explaining much of the variance because it's an experiment, it's random. So use R-squared because you should not be penalizing your model by adding the covariates and have a negative, because you want the model to be overfitted, saturated, because that's the point of the covariates. So do not penalize that by taking the result and by taking a penalty factor from the R-squared. And we already talked about one robustness check. Okay, for the robustness check, different colors. Okay, second robustness check, can gender be a moderation factor, a moderator there? So because you see, okay, we found that gender of our 4 hypotheses, okay, so A, B, C, and D, out of 4, all of them was negative, and 3 of them were significant. So is gender a moderator there? So now you explore that to see if there is something there. So we have this kind of a robustness estimation, the second. Okay, the second robustness estimation by using gender as a moderator. And you see if what we found is that there is difference in the baseline, so that women will be more stringent than men in their analysis. They'll be stricter. They'll give smaller values there. Okay, so those smaller valuations of the company. So because women are more stricter in general in our experiment, are they affected differently? So what you saw is a difference in the baseline. What you want to see is a difference in fact. And if not, you're going to say, okay, women just have a different baseline than men. They are more strict, they're stricter in their analysis, but the difference in the analysis are the same. Or maybe there is a difference there, and maybe these techniques will be more effective on men or more effective on women. We do not know because I haven't tested. But this can be an additional result. And even if you have no significant result, you can say that it affected both genders equally, even if they have different baselines for their ratings, which is an interesting thing, okay, to say so. Different baselines, but same results, or different baselines, different results. Doesn't matter. Both are interesting. So that's and that can enrich the paper with kind of an additional estimation. Okay, so that's a thing that I want to say in this paper. And so this is all that I have as comments. So thank you very much. Do you have anything extra to say about my comments or anything to add?
No, again, just to thank for the opportunity.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the comments. We really appreciate it, Professor Rodrigo.
So thank you all for coming here in such a short notice. People that were previously in the previous seminar know that there was a different presenter here, but there was a problem in scheduling. Then I asked Armando and Thiago out of the blue, very close to the time, and to present. They were very gracious to present here. And now gonna finish this with our next presenters. So next presenter will be Roberto Tomasetti. He will be presenting on, let me see here, because this will not be in the last, usually it is the last Tuesday, okay, but because this is the end of the year, it will be on December the 14th, sorry. December the 14th, so Wednesday, the Professor Roberto, that is from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, not here from COPPEAD, but from the FAC, so that's he's from the accounting department there, and he will present a paper. Then in January, we have a kind of a vacation month, no presentations. We come back in February with Sérgio Guimarães from the Brazilian Development Bank, that's BNDES. Then on March, we have Professor André Carvalhal here from COPPEAD. And in April, we have Professor Jefferson Colombo from Getúlio Vargas Foundation, from the São Paulo School of Economics here. Okay, so these are the next speakers. Hope that you that are watching can tune back here to see our other papers. And this is a monthly seminar sponsored by the COPPEAD Finance, Accounting, and Sustainability Research Lab. I'm the head of the lab, and we hope that we can see you again next month. So thank you all, and see you again in December. Bye.
Bye-bye.